Today I'm going to be reviewing the eco-worthy 12.8 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. This is the model that has a Bluetooth and also has an LED screen on the top here to monitor the battery. This battery is the compact model, and you can see the design of this battery is quite different from many other 12 volt lithium iron phosphate batteries. Here's a side-by-side comparison between this battery and a regular 12.8 volt 100 amp hour battery, and you can see the design is quite different, and it's also smaller than a regular battery. There is another big difference between these two batteries, is that this battery has a handle, so you can lift the battery with one hand, whereas this battery does not have a handle or a strap. It has a hand grip on the side of the battery on both sides, and therefore in order to lift this battery you have to use both hands. You cannot use one hand to carry this battery. The dimensions of this battery is 12 inches by 8.5 inches by 7 inches, and it weighs almost 24 pounds or 10.8 kilograms. It has an LED indicator on the top of the battery with an on-off button. So you press this button, the LED will turn on, and press again, it will turn off. But this is not for turning on and off the battery output. This is just for this LED screen indicator. So on the top here we got the state of charge of the battery. We've got 5 LEDs and each LED represents 25%. Down here we also have fault indicator. So we got high temperature, low temperature, over voltage, under voltage, over currents, and BMS faults. You can also monitor all these parameters using the Bluetooth app. But this is a lot more convenient than having a phone with a Bluetooth app, because with a click of a button on the battery and you can see all the information you need. I have charged the battery to 100%. Battery voltage now 13.35 volts, and we've got all 5 bars here showing 100%. It's time to do a capacity test. We've got 2 capacity testers here, each runs at 10 amps for a total of 20 amps. The battery is 100 amp hour, so it's going to take about 5 hours to finish. Alright, it has been 5 hours and we have already reached 100 amp hour. 50 amp hour on the left, 50 amp hour on the right, so it's already more than 100 amp hour, and it's still going, so it's going to end up more than 100 amp hour. I'm just going to let it run until the BMS shuts down. Alright, we are done. The BMS just shut down. Battery voltage now 0.005 volts. Let's see what we got. One on the left, 51.97 amp hour. See the one on the right, 51.84 amp hour. So the total capacity is 103.81 amp hour. That is a little bit more than the rated 100 amp hour from eco-worthy, so that's awesome. Here's all of the data I have recorded for the last 5 hours. This battery can be controlled and monitored by a Bluetooth app. So let me go ahead and connect a light bulb to the battery as a load, and I'm going to show you the Bluetooth app. Here's the front page of the app. We got the battery state of charge, battery voltage, and current. Negative 4.7 amps, and that's because it's discharging right now at 4.7 amps. Down here we got total power 62 watts, remaining battery capacity, remaining working time, state of charge, current battery temperature normal. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you exactly the temperature of the battery, so over here it only says normal. If your battery is cold, then over here it's gonna say low temperature, which I'm going to show you in a little bit when I put the battery in the freezer. If your battery is overheated, over here it will say high temperature. And when that happens, on the warning page, over here it will show either your battery temperature is too low or too high. Next page, we're going to go to control. We got storage mode. It will put your battery in storage mode if you don't use the battery for a long time to conserve power so that it doesn't drain the battery down to 0%. In storage mode, it will completely disconnect the BMS from the battery to conserve power. And your battery won't turn on until you wake up the battery using a 12-volt power source, which I will show you later in the video. And that is so important that EcoWorthy have to have you click here to activate it in order to enable the hibernation of the battery. Otherwise, if you don't understand or don't know how to wake up the battery, you might think the battery is dead. So that's why you have to read this before you can enable hibernation. I'm not gonna enable hibernation mode, so I'm just gonna cancel. Buzzer alarm function switch. And this is how it's explained what it is in the user manual. So basically, if your BMS fails, it will beep. And the BMS fault light on the top of the battery will turn on. And let's go to the next page, data. So this is almost the same data that you see on the first screen. Down here will show you single cell voltage. Down here it will tell you if the charging switch state is on or off. Closed means that is on. So right now charging is enabled or on. Discharge is enabled or on. If you see open here or open here, that means charging or discharging is disabled. Charger connection. This will tell you either the charger is connected or not. This is very useful for troubleshooting the charger or the battery when you plug in the charger and your battery doesn't charge. Load connection is connected, and that's because my light bulb is connected. Now if I disconnect the light bulb, you will see it will say not connected. And I'm gonna connect the light bulb back again. You will see it's connected. And the last page is warning, which I showed you earlier. And that's everything about this app. It will show you charging and discharging function, but it will not let you turn on and off charging and discharging function. This battery has low temperature charging protection. So when the battery is too cold, the BMS will shut down to protect the battery from being damaged. I put the battery in the freezer overnight. You can see it's forming frost on the battery right now, and it is extremely cold right now. And let me show you the screen here. If I turn on the screen, you can see it says L temp. You can see the orange LED, L temp means low temperature. This only protects the battery from being charged when it's cold. But if you put a load on it, it still turns on. I got my battery charger ready. Let's plug it in and see what happens. Nothing happens, and it won't charge the battery. See 0 amp here. And over here in the app, it will show current battery temperature, low temperature. And on the third page down here, you see that the charging switch is disconnected. Charger connection connected, meaning the charger is connected but it's not charging. And then on the last page, the warning page, it will show charging low temperature. So there you go. When the battery is too cold, it will stop charging to protect the battery from being damaged, but it will still allow discharging. Alright, I have left the battery out for a few hours and the battery has warmed up a little bit. There's still some condensation on the battery and it's still pretty cold down here. Check this out. I'll turn this on. Ta-da! The low temp light is now off. So now if I plug it in, ta-da! it will charge the battery. And we are charging close to 25 amps. That's awesome. It's time for a load test. Let's see what this battery is capable of. This battery is rated at 100 amp. Discharge rate, it doesn't really say it in the user manual. I couldn't find any of that information. But for this battery, that information is printed right on the battery, on the back side of the battery. I've got my inverter connected to the battery and a 1500 watt heater. My first test is to see how well it runs when it's under 100 amps. Here we go. Alright, got 50 amps and counting. And on my inverter it says about 850 watts, 900 watts. Yep, we got 71 amps. Well, let's turn on the timer. Wow, we had 1000 watts. We're stable at around 77 amps. Alright, it's been over 6 minutes now and we've been running at close to 80 amps. And the voltage is quite stable at 12.17 volts. Everything is running smooth. The battery is nice and cool. So let's turn it off. Alright, it's time to push it to the limit. Let's see what happens when it goes over 100 amps. Here we go. Already over 100 amps. Start. Yep, battery is below 12 volts now. Oh yeah, it shuts down. Wow, it's only about, I would say, 8 seconds or so. Let me turn this off. Let's see how long it takes for the BMS to turn back on. So right now it's turned off, 2.6 volts. That's from the battery. This is quite interesting. The BMS doesn't really turn all the way down to 0 volts. It was around 2 point something volts and then it's slowly rising. Now you see it's 5 volts now and continue to rise. Well, it's been over 5 minutes and we are stalling at 5.2 volts and it's not increasing anymore. I don't know what's going on. So let's turn on my inverter and see what happens. Nope, my inverter does not turn on and the voltage is reducing. So the BMS is actually completely turned off. Well, it's 9.5 minutes and the BMS is still off, still hovering around 5.3, 5.2 volts. That is still off. I've got a 9 volt battery here. Let's try and see if we can use a 9 volt battery to wake it up. So I'm just gonna tap it. 6 volt, come on. 7, 8, 8.4. Come on. Okay, it's not waking up with my 9 volt battery. Let's try a 12 volt battery. Alright, here we go. Waking up with 12 volt battery. Yep, there we go. We need a 12 volt battery, not a 9 volt. BMS is now 13.2 volts. So there you go. The battery runs fine when it was under 100 amps. When you push it over 100 amps, the BMS will shut down after about 6 or 7 seconds. And then you're going to wait a long time for it to turn back on. And in this case, I waited for over 13 minutes and it was still not on. So I had to use a 12 volt battery to wake up the BMS for it to turn back on. Now if I turn on my inverter, yep, everything is now back on. So there you have it, the new and improved eco-worthy 100 amp hour 12.8 volt battery with Bluetooth. In my opinion, the most useful feature of this battery is not the Bluetooth, but it's actually the LED indicator screen on the top of the battery here. I have reviewed many 12 volt 100 amp hour batteries before, but this is the only battery that has an external indicator or screen to show you all the information about the battery. Granted, it's not a colorful, beautiful screen like from an iPhone, but a couple of LED is enough for you to know all the information on the battery without having to open up your phone and look at the Bluetooth app. It's an awesome battery. It passed all the tests I threw at it. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.